Hello.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum and good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everyone who is joining us from Oman and outside Oman. As we close 2025 with this landmark joint webinar between ACFE Oman and IIA Oman chapters, it is truly fitting that we turn our focus to one of the most defining risks and opportunities of our time, AI-driven fraud. Today, we are honored to welcome Rania Bejjani, a global respected governance, risk, and internal audit leader, whose voice has helped shape and elevate our profession around the world. I now welcome our ACFE president, Mr. Haytham Al-Raisi, to give the welcome note and then hand over to Mr. Ahmed Al-Subhi to introduce the speaker.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're attending from. Welcome to ACFE Oman and IIA Oman chapters joint webinar. Today, our speaker is Rania Bejjani. We'll be speaking about AI-driven fraud. Rania has recently interviewed John Gill, who is the president of ACFE Global. And I would encourage you to watch her insightful episode on the impact legacy with Rania. And before I hand it over to Mr. Ahmed, I just wanted to send a thank you note to everybody here, to internal audit community, anti-fraud community. I just want to say thank you for the contribution that you made to the chapters, to the profession, and I would request you to continue your support throughout this. And since we are away from the new year, I just want to say Happy New Year, and I wish you a successful 2026. For now, I would say enjoy the session and take it forward, Ahmed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Rania Bejjani. Rania is a governance, risk, internal audit advisor with over 25 years of international experience across the sector. She works closely with the boards, senior leaders, strengthens the governance, modernizing the audit and risk functions, and build resilience against the fraud. She previously served as a Chief Audit and Risk Executive at VEON, FirstGroup, and Colt Technology, following her career after Deloitte. I have personally attended different and many times of Rania's workshop. I can confidently say that she has a clear, practical, and very engaging way of delivering complex topic. Rania is fluent in English, Arabic, also French, and she is trusted advisor and mentor to audit risk leaders worldwide, and speaker at international conference across the UK, Europe, India, Middle East, including Oman. Rania holds master degree in accounting, strategy management, and CIMA and CIA. Rania, thank you for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Ahmed, thank you so much. Dr. Iram, thank you. Haytham, thank you. And it is my absolute pleasure to be here today. Also, thank you to Abbas Lawati and Amal Khabouri. I appreciate your invitation, all of you, for me to join you here. So I'm about to start, but before I do that, I just want to say how excited I am about actually being here with you. Can you see me, by the way?
Yes.
All right, again. All right, okay. And I just want to say that I have come to Oman the first time about a year ago, actually almost a year and a month ago, and it has taken a very special place in my heart. In that year, I've been twice to Oman. I've delivered two, this is the second webinar I deliver. I delivered a special one for IA month. So it's an absolute pleasure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum, and it's such a pleasure. And because I know that at the end of the day, we have some English speakers and non-English speakers on the call. Where relevant, I will also include some Arabic حتى نعمل نتأكد إنه المسجز المهمين عم يوصلوا للجميع. All right, so now I'm about to show my screen. Just to do a little technical check, please tell me if you're able to see me and my screen.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, now what about now? Can you still see me and my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, because I gotta be able to navigate here and okay, let's go in that screen.
Rania, can you mention whether you would take questions during the talk or later?
I am. It's easier to do it later, but if someone has such a burning question, by all means ask. But it's better for the flow of ideas and for things like that, we do it at the end. Is that okay?
Yes, that should be fine.
All right, wonderful. Okay, and can I ask the attendees to tell us, are they able to see any emoticons to engage with me? Like if I ask you a question, are you able to give me a thumbs up or something, or no? I don't know if they can put it in the chat, and if you can see the chat, just to let me know if they are able to engage. Maybe not. All right. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Let's start from the top. Once again, Oman, ACFE Oman, IIA Oman, and everyone in Oman, it's such a pleasure to be here with you today. And this is my last event of the year as well. And so let's wrap up this year with positivity for the year ahead, and start with some good reflections. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about what is happening in the world of fraud, and how is AI shaping and changing and transforming the fraud scene. And this is not a training session, this is a webinar. So this is about really more thought-provoking for you and time for reflection. So leave you with things to think about over the coming the coming holiday season, and as you enter in 2026, you'll have things to think about your organizations, about what you are doing, and about where could you change some things. So may I just check, can you still see all of my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Because for me here, it looks slightly different. All right. So recently I was in the London Stock Exchange Risk Intelligence Summit on Fraud at the beginning of October, something like that. And the picture that was really depicted was utterly scary, that fraud is increasing at an unprecedented scale, and if really it continues like that unchallenged, the outcomes are really completely unpredictable. My conclusion, as I looked at all the numbers and they compared numbers, was that if fraud was a country, it would really have the highest GDP growth, because fraud in the last year or two reached nearly $500 billion, 500 billion in terms of losses compared to previous. And a lot of that fraud rise is very much driven by AI. So AI is reshaping the fraud, but how and why? Let me clarify one thing and make it clear, because we are here a community of audit and risk professionals. So AI itself is not creating new types of fraud. what do I mean by that? What I mean is that fraud is still kind of the same. It is you embezzle money, you do something you shouldn't be doing, you are breaching a policy, you're doing things outside authorization levels, and ultimately some unethical behavior to get money. So this concept itself, AI has not changed. Fraud is still fraud. But what AI is doing is that it is putting fraud on steroid. It's really amplifying and expanding how this is done. Now, when we talk about fraud, we talk about different types of fraud, obviously. You know, there are the sort of analog types of fraud, if you wish, where we see a leader maybe overriding controls, you know, or you know, breaking a policy or doing something corrupt. This kind of human fraud continues and is not the focus of what we're talking about today, because this is a human nature that is happening. But what are we talking about is the frauds that are more today being executed pretty much from the support of technology. So when I say that fraud is being amplified by technology, it's not only me just saying that. I mean, every single study out there is showing it. There's so many studies, I could have filled many pages, but the idea is like, you know, CrowdStrike, they say that 75% in the attacks that are happening today, cyber attacks, etc., are all using stolen credentials, and that they were able to obtain through like fake IDs and things like that with the help of AI. Experian, which does the credit scoring, it says that, and payments controls, it says that, you know, Gen AI tools really aggravated and you know, spiked APP, the authorized push payments. And authorized push payment is when you make a payment that you've authorized, not knowing yet you've been fooled at the other side. The as I said, the London Stock Exchange Risk Intelligence Group, Forrester, Gartner, every big four, every community that is a consulting firm, every risk group out there have really put out a study or an analysis that have showed globally across the world the increase in cyber and cyber and in fraud because of the rise of AI. Deloitte at the end of 2024, early 2025, said that 1 in 4 executives have already experienced one or more deepfake incident, and that they expected more to happen. And their 2025 results are not yet out yet. So it would be really interesting to see how this is evolving. But one thing for sure, it is evolving. Now, why is that? Why is AI putting a fraud on you know, on steroid? Why is it so amplified? Well, because the fraudsters themselves are becoming very, very sophisticated, and AI is enabling this sophistication. So when we look at fraud in the big scheme of things, as I said, we have things like, you know, the management override of controls, bribery, corruption. These things still exist. But on top of that, now we have like in many parts of the world, government-funded frauds and attacks and things like that. You know, with all the changes in geopolitical scenes, we're seeing hotspots where there's like sponsorships of these attacks. We're also seeing in other parts of the world, particularly, for example, in some parts of Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, there is a rise of you know, fraud farms, where basically there is these massive centers where we have human trafficking and fraud coming together to create like a industry level of centers that craft and prepare and plan fraudulent attacks, and we'll talk about that more. Then there's been a rise in the way that also employees are interacting with some of the fraud. And then there is the dark web. There is the dark web, and we'll come to that, where basically there is more and more a fraternity. The fraudsters are collaborating. They've created things like chat, you know, we have Chat GPT, they have Fraud GPT and a Ghost GPT and a GPT and things like that, where they are gaining a lot more sophistication. So how is that actually translating in reality? First is scale and speed. You know, like think about yourself when, if you are using Gemini or Claude or Copilot or ChatGPT, where, you know, it can help you speed things up, right? You want to edit something or whatever, and it does it fast for you. Now imagine if you have that at absolutely big scale and someone is using all that intelligence to specifically you know, for fraudulent purposes. So AI has created scale and speed. يعني الذكاء الاصطناعي عم بيسمح انه الفرود يكون عم يتمارس بشكل اكبر، هائل، اكبر بكتير وبسرعه عظيمه، بسرعه اقوى. Let me give you an example, for an example with the scale and speed. Before, when we think about, like, let's say, think about all these phishing emails that we sometimes get that look fraudulent and dodgy. Typically, it was only part, like Englishy type speaking parts of the word that we're getting these, and that they were sent. But now with AI, these are being localized and being translated. And for example, Japan, for the very first time, it is experiencing a rise in these phishing emails, because now with the AI, they are able to translate it. Later, I'm going to give you an example about Singapore, but let me kind of explain it a bit now. In Singapore, like the Indian community, there's a lot of people from India that work in Singapore, and so they have a license to operate. They, you know, they have a residency, etc. Through the phishing and the perfection of the language through AI and being able to identify, the entire community got the same phishing email, so everyone thought that this was genuine, and that caused so many people to fall in that pitfall and to actually pay and lose money. So we got scale, where you're able to do it in multiple places in a bigger fashion, and speed, where you're able to really replicate it, do it, translate it, fine-tune it, distribute it, all with the help of AI. So much more that fraud is a lot more prevalent. Now, AI is also allowing that personalized social engineering. So think again about that example that I gave you, you know, in Japan, where now the phishing email is being translated in Japanese to suit the Japanese culture. Or for example, you know, someone might be able to do a deep search on you and then be able to craft the perfect message that would feel so real to you that you'd fall for it. So it's allowing that personalization. يعني صار في عنا عنصر انه المسج ما بقى بيجي بشكل عشوائي او جينيريك، بس عم بيكون مخصص لنا شخصيا لدرجه انه كلنا بنفتكر انه مزبوط. Now, what also AI, how is AI amplifying fraud, is through the use of clones. When we do voice deepfakes and video impersonations, and when we're going to look at some examples, I'll come back to that. But this is crazy, because now, and so many of us, look at me, I have so many videos out there through my podcast, etc. And so many of us have our photos, our videos, you know, be it on LinkedIn or other. I only do on LinkedIn, but like other places where people can listen to us and be able to really use our images and voices and for fraudulent purposes. So there was actually a survey done in MENA around this, and pretty much I think that survey was by a risk group in the Middle East, and they said something like, you know, 75% of executives in the Middle East could easily be cloned and impersonated because there are so much voice and images and videos out there. Now, also AI is transforming fraud because of synthetic IDs and fake documents. And this is actually, there is not only a financial implication to this, but there is a deeply human implication for this, because children's IDs are being stolen, people's IDs are being stolen, people's lives are being ruined. And typically the fraudsters, they are targeting the most vulnerable in society, like children, people who, for example, on the move, people who, you know, and they who've been trafficked, etc. يعني في عنا ثمن إنساني أكبر كمان من الثمن المالي، لأنه في حياتات بالجمع عم تنهار، وخاصة الأطفال والناس يلي يمكن عرضة أكثر من غيرهم. And I already talked about the dark web collaboration. And so this fraternity and collaboration also means that there is like a code you could go buy if you are a fraudster. It's like in a package you can buy, like a fraud in a box type thing, where they teach you how to do it. You pay some of money, they teach you how to do it, they train you how to do it. You can leverage the code, you can leverage the techniques, you can leverage the tools, and then you get it done. And this fraud as a service toolkits are actually available for sale on the dark web, which is really scary. And all of this means that fraudsters are making a lot more money. As I said, almost $500 billion. And the outcome and the result of that, when they are making so much money, is that they are very motivated to make more. They are innovating, they are collaborating, they're coming up with new ideas, they're investing with the technology, they're trialing different things, they're being very, very entrepreneurial. And, you know, a phrase I heard that I found incredibly powerful is that fraud moves at the pace of money, and prevention moves at the pace of law. So institutions, police, companies, they are moving at the pace where the law allows them to do something, whereas these guys have no law. They are only motivated by the money, and so they are fast. So they are always going to be ahead, but it's about how we're going to protect ourselves. So let's look at some examples. I'm sure you've all heard about this. It was back in 2024 when the English company, Arab, the engineering company, fell victim, and one of its employees in Hong Kong was fooled through a series of 3 or 4 Zoom calls where their bosses and the CFO, etc., were all impersonated with deep voices and deep fake voices and impersonation videos. And this person authorized a $25 million, which is 20 million pounds, a payment. So this was crazy, right? And you might also have heard about the different impersonations that happened. For example, they impersonated Biden and during a certain point, etc. But the most interesting one is when they did a deep fake of Elon Musk. And I don't know if you saw those ads. I certainly saw them when they happened, about a year ago, and they were everywhere, where Elon Musk was giving these advice about investment and quantum AI and quantum investing and all that. And lo and behold, some people, when they saw on TikTok and on Insta and on LinkedIn and on YouTube and whatever, they believe that this is real, and a lot of people have paid money. And there's a great video. I don't know if I'm able to open it here, so we'll skip that. But it's a great video about like this woman who put money thinking, yeah, she's doing with the real thing. So these real things are real. Now, there are examples where we've got organizations that are hit, like the Arab, or individuals like the Elon Musk deep fake that went to different people. And let's say this case where women in France, a woman in France thought she's having a love affair with Brad Pitt, who's over time has been building with her all this romantic connection, and duped her of nearly $1 million. So it is both the people and the companies that are at risk. Aramco's name is used so often for phishing emails that even Aramco, you know, has put on their website a scam and fraud alert, and you know they've been used. Their name has been fraudulently used many times, and this is an Indian example I gave you, where the High Commission of India and Singapore had to put notices out there because this has become so prevalent. يعني الفرود لما عم بتصير للشرك وللأشخاص. And if we look at the UK example, in the last year, we've had a record number of cyber attacks where they ask for, you know, basically for ransom money. So it's not only the individuals, it's only companies. And we've had, I'm sure you'd recognize some of these brands: Marks and Spencer's, the Co-op, the big supermarket chain, Harrods, the luxury department store, you know, and all of these. I mean, the retail sector was crippled for weeks. You could not really pay by tapping in Marks and Spencer. You could no longer order online. They lost millions. Same with the Co-op, same with Harrods, but Marks and Spencer was bigger. And then came the big bang with the Jaguar Land Rover, where basically they interrupted their complete production, and they were for a number of weeks could not produce anything. They made, you know, triple-digit million losses, and the economy, the UK economy, went down in September and October because of that, because of the loss of production in cars. And you know how I was explaining about synthetic IDs. Even a nursery in the UK was attacked, and the personal details of the children were stolen, and they were stolen obviously with intentions to use them. So you can't make money of a nursery, but you can use the children's IDs. So there are many examples, and those frauds are getting worse and worse. The FBI themselves have now put alerts and are warning people that there could be AI generated kidnapping scams. There's a case of a woman I was reading only about a week or so you know, ago in the US, and it was on the Axios website, so it's a trusted source, where a woman, someone called her, they said to her, "We've kidnapped your mother." She could hear her mom screaming in the car, when in fact it was all impersonated. And even when I spoke with John Jill, he was saying that they are seeing a lot of rise where people will call and say, you know, "I am your grandson, I am your nephew." They will have their same voice. They will call the grandfather to give them money. "Hey, granddad, I am stuck somewhere, send me money." And with all the automated and the instant payment, it makes it so much easier to commit the fraud. So الفرود عم بيكون على الشرك، عم بيكون على الأشخاص، عم بيكون بأشكال مختلفة. يعني النهاية هي نفسها إنه ياخذوا الأموال وياخذوا المصاري، ولكن الشكل عم بيتغير مع AI، لأنه هلا AI بيسمح إنه نقدر نعمل ديب فيك بصوت حدا، بصورة حدا، ننتحل شخصية حدا، او نقدر يعني الفرودستر عم يقدر يغش العالم at scale مثل ما قلنا بالايلون ماسك example to get يعني to embezzle money. So you are individuals and you are companies. What do you as companies and individuals want? يعني you want to protect your reputation, your trust. You want to reduce the element of surprise. You want to strengthen governance. مظبوط? You want that, right? You want this, and you want to stay ahead of emerging trends. This is what companies want. ما حدا يلي هو بموقع يقود البزنس بده انه يكون منه قادر يضمن شو عم بيصير بالمستقبل. يعني عنصر المفاجأة هو كتير صعب على الأشخاص وعلى الشرك. And a part of that leadership is to be able to shape the future. So as businesses shaping the future and protecting the reputation and the trust and the value and the money and reducing losses. So كيف الشركاء بيقدروا يعملوا هالشيء؟ بس قبل let's ask the question, where are you now? Like where as organizations now? I want you to think, like take a moment, 30 seconds to really think about it. Like how ready are you for the future? Like maybe you've already put strategy for AI protection in place. Maybe you've invested in the systems. Maybe you've invested in all this. Maybe you have not. And as a result, you might be exposed. Maybe you have, planned things, but not yet. But this is what I am seeing because I advise and work with organizations globally. This is the problem I keep seeing. We have a lot of systems, some are good, but there are issues with fragmented ownership. There are problems with slow decision processes. Every time a company wants to invest into a new system or whatever, there are multiple steps of approvals, deep dives, case studies, whatever. Something could take anything from 3 months to a year and a half. Now, in a year and a half, the world is completely changed. AI is completely changed. Just for your information, it's been tracked, it's not Rania saying, but in the last 5 years, since 2020, when the first AI type things saw the light to now, there's been more change than the last 50 years combined. So بآخر 5 سنين صار في تغيير على طريقة الشغل والتكنولوجي والفرود كل هالأمور سبقت 50 سنة اللي قبلها. 5 سنين أسرع من 50 سنة. وإذا بنقارن هالشيء مع ال decision process وكيف الشرك عم تاخد قراراتها، كيف الشرك عم تحضر البزنس بلانز، كيف بدهم وقت ليروحوا على البورد وكذا وكذا وكذا, which of course is important from a governance perspective. But if you compare the two, that slow decision process is becoming a problem. What is also a problem that I see in many organizations is we still have a very siloed defense towards risk, compliance, cyber, infosec, what the board thinks, etc. And there's a lot of reactive as opposed to being proactive defense. And الأهم إنه الوعي على الفرود منه equal across the business ومنه equal across companies. يعني there are some companies that they've created some awareness, but more often than not, the level of awareness and and knowledge of these AI matters and these fraud matters is uneven and low. And importantly, which as auditors and fraud professional of anti-fraud professionals, you would know also from your own experiences that we might have controls by design, but they're not always operating in practice. And so where are we now as organizations is that organizations are not as safe as they think they are or as they want to be. And where do they want to be? إذا أنتوا you reflect أنتوا فكرتوا أنتوا وين بدكم تكونوا؟ وين بدكم تكونوا ك professionals بالاوديت والريسك والفرود والشركة اللي عم تشتغلوا فيها وين بدكم إياها تكون؟ What do organizations want? They want, and what do you want for your organization? To build the ability to respond fast, to act as one system, to encourage challenge and discussions and proactivity, to be able to protect the value and protect trust. So if this is where we are, and this is where you want to be, how are we going to get there? From the problem, from the fragmentation, from the silos, from the low to ability to respond quick and protect trust. Well, technology, of course, will help. Technology now is advancing, and just like we have AI tools that are being used to commit the fraud, there are AI tools that help us to defend ourselves from the fraud. There are many tools, and so there are opportunities to harness AI, use analytics more intelligently, leverage data, keep up with the technological advances. Akid, 100%, all these are there. But there are a couple of problems. First of all, Google in 2024 did a survey, and others have done a similar survey before it, that said that companies are only using about 1% of their data. Yani they have so much data, they don't even know how to use it. And there's still issues between old systems and new systems and whatever, which means that cracks would still exist. And if we're not really using the data, how is AI protection going to work? Because AI is all about what? It's all about recognizing the pattern, and from pattern recognition, being able to do a defense. So there is that. Thirdly, AI cannot always detect fraud by another AI. And this comes from John Gill. Well, basically he says, well, AI might do an analysis, but then when you look at the analysis, it might look logical for AI, but it takes the trained perspective of someone to identify so that 1 + 1 = 2 is correct, but it may not be right in this context, in this environment, given what we know about the organization. So for all these reasons, yes, there are IT tools, and yes, there are AI tools, and yes, we can leverage data, but it is not enough. Technology alone is not enough. What we need is a wider 360 view of the whole ecosystem to understand how the different things come together. The systems, the people, the inflow, the outflow, all that, how it is coming together to understand it. And yes, invest in technology, and yes, invest in AI. But if we look at all the examples I gave you, from what happened in the UK with the cyber attacks, what happened with the Tesla guy, the Elon Musk impersonation, what happened with the Arab, the 25 million in Hong Kong, none of it was because the system controls failed. None of it was because the technology failed. They were all actually authorized payments. They were authorized access, and through a human being. It's all through a human being. And really, what we really need to keep in mind here is that the humans are actually the weak link. And that's what a lot of organizations often forget. And as humans, we're vulnerable. We are the weak link. Why? Because we're human, because we have our emotions, because we have different things that we deal with. For example, we overtrust. We might, you might be really nice to me, and I will trust you. That poor woman who believed that she's having a romantic relationship with Brad Pitt, a fake Brad Pitt. I mean, we could argue she's stupid, fine, but I've met the person. Have you watched on, the Tinder, on Netflix, the Tinder swindler? I've met the woman who was scammed, and actually she's going to feature on one of my podcasts in the future, and one of my series. But she is a very intelligent woman with a PhD, and yet she had a moment of thinking this person is nice and la la la, trusting. And so as humans, we have the ability to overtrust. If you are a grandfather who's going to get a call, I'm going to tell you, جدي انقطعت فيه السيارة وما معي مصاري حدا عم بيستعمل صوتي, you will trust me. So overtrust is part of a human nature. But also there's the element of pressure and urgency. Pressure and urgency. And what do I mean by that? It is there are so many deadlines in the business. We need to get things done. We're all running around. If anything, the pace of our lives has become so much faster that sometimes we're not present. We're not paying attention. We're not being vigilant. And so with the pressure and urgency, so many things to do, that we can not notice the things that we should notice. So the human remains the vulnerable. But by pressure and urgency, it's not only about being busy and being overwhelmed and having so much to do and not paying attention, but you know, there's also the pressure and the urgency from, for example, money, right? Let's go back to that original fraud triangle, the 3 dimensions. You know, المثلث تبع الفرود، عندنا الاوبورتونيتي وعندنا الراشنال etc. بس كمان عندنا الموتيفيشن الانسنتيف. Sometimes if individuals have financial needs, you know, that creates a pressure and an urgency for them. There was a BBC documentary only about 3 days ago, and I watched it and I was fascinated. They were saying that actually one of the BBC journalists was approached by you know, a fraud gang, and the interesting part is they offered him money. They offered him money to give him to give them his access rights and control. So he would not be making a mistake. Now, obviously, he's an ethical journalist and he's done a whole documentary about this. But the point is, if these gangs and these fraudsters are offering money to someone who's financially under pressure, you know, that creates also an opportunity for fraud. And so we need to remember that this triangle that applies in the analog world also applies here. And part of that could be, you know, the resentment. You know, I'm disgruntled, I lost my job, I'm unhappy, and either I you know, willingly let them in or I make money of it. And then there is the whole element of separation and segregation and fragmentation, and where we have assurance being completely cut into different pieces, and there's the boards think one thing, management team think another thing, audit see one thing, the business sees another, risk, compliance, etc. All that means that we are not having this jointed approach, you know, to be able to do that. And then there is the fear. Now, throughout our careers, we know that sometimes people knew what to do, but they were afraid to challenge the boss because he or she is more senior, or he or she is unfriendly or unpleasant, or they were scared for their jobs, or they were scared to lose the salary. So people are afraid to speak, even though when they know what is the right thing to do. And so us as a fraud and audit and risk professionals, we really need to think about these things. And obviously, the big one is the lack of understanding and awareness, because these techniques, the fraud itself has not changed, i.e. I do something bad to take money, but the techniques of fooling someone and duping someone and convincing and manipulating and influencing and playing and triggering, they've changed with AI and amplified with AI. And there's all these new technological things like impersonations, and you know, that not everyone may be aware of, and that means we creating the risk. So I believe, Rania Bejjani, believe in my capacity as a governance, risk, and audit global leader, advisor, mentor. I believe that the strongest defense today is still our people. The strongest defense is the human wall. It's the human wall. This is the firewall that is as important as the technical firewall that we put in businesses. واليوم أقوى دفاع بعده ضد الاحتيال هو إنه الأشخاص اللي يكونوا واعيين ومدركين وعارفين وفاهمين كيف بدهم يتصرفوا، ويكون عندهم القدرة والشجاعة والثقة إنه يتصرفوا وسرعة البديهة. And so the human firewall is, this is my message to you today, because AI can detect risk. And as audit risk professionals, we know that AI can detect risk, AI can help us prevent, can help us, etc. But human judgment remains the key determinant of the outcome, at least today. And يعني الذكاء الاصطناعي عم بيساعدنا نكشف شو في أخطار، نكشف الاحتيال يمكن بعض الأحوال، ولكن بأحيان تانية ما بيقدر، وبيضل إنه هو قدرتنا نحن كأشخاص نستعمل إنسانيتنا، نستعمل قرارنا، نستعمل فهمنا، هو بعده اللي عم بيقرر المصير تبع حماية الشركة. So the human firewall in the age of AI-driven model. I would like to introduce you to my model. This is a model I use with some of my clients as I take them through preparing for this. And it is a simple but very robust model. You know, to have that 360-degree, I mentioned the ability to protect and that ability to create the trust and protect the value and minimize loss and take away the surprises. So we need that security in the business. Well, it's always going to start at the top. The tone at the top, the governance. You know, resilient organizations start with resilient boards. And I was speaking recently for Diligent and Board Agenda to a very big group of board members, and I was doing a similar talk to auditors, to CFOs, CEOs, and board members, explaining to them how they build the resilience in the organization through resilience at the board and how the two come together. So the tone at the top is very, very important. And really, this is what dictates what happens, dictates everything that falls under this. And so getting the tone at the top remains essential. The next part is having this education and awareness. Having, يعني من مجلس الإدارة بيعطينا التون at the top, بيعطينا الرؤية وبيعطينا النظام الحوكمة, but we also need the education and the awareness. And so this is not just like a one-off training or whatever. This is like a continuous mechanism of keeping people up to date and educating them, to give them, empower them to be able to identify, detect, speak up, etc., about potential frauds they're seeing. But speaking up is only possible if we have the right culture and we have the right communication. So it's all about really having that psychological safety. If as organizations, we need to be able to speak, to share, to express our thoughts, to pinpoint things without fear of repercussions or fear of losing our jobs or etc. So having that culture of collaboration and safety and psychological safety is absolutely essential. And then finally, the communication piece of this equation is really important, because the communication is about communicating that tone at the top, communicating those education programs, communicating the culture, communicating the policies. But it's not only about having policies, it's about having that culture. And then we need a well unified, cohesive, collaborative, coordinated, interdependent, integrated approach to defense and to assurance. This is really taking also a more proactive rather than reactive, as looking at the future and shaping the future, not just looking at the past. So this also for us as audit and risk, it makes us to rethink and reconsider how are we doing our audit and risk. And this is where I do also a lot of work in with audit and risks, helping them to elevate, to work better together. And you know, I advise and I coach, and I've worked with many clients around this to bring together. That doesn't mean that you have to all report under one person, but there is a structure and a way and a blueprint to be able to come together as as a united defense to build the capabilities of the future. And then there is the rapid response. I said earlier, fraud moves at the pace of money, and prevention and protection is moving at the pace of the law, the institutions, the Interpol, the police, the governments, the courts, the lawyers, the companies. They're moving at the pace of the policies and the laws, and and this is a lot slower than the pace of money and frauds. So we need to make sure we are ready, so we're not behind. We may have to do catch up, but we need to make sure we're not very behind. And then finally, it all comes together with, how do we monitor? How do we create the vigilance? How do we create the right controls? How do we make sure people are paying attention? How do they come together? How do they are always on alert when they see something, so they are not fooled? Now, I want to share with you that as audit risk professionals, we might think that we know exactly how to, like we would be able to identify if something is fraudulent. Trust me, we cannot, because it's getting so much more sophisticated. And there's been, many studies recently, including, I think, one by KPMG that said that, no, actually, I think it was Deloitte, that 60% of people might be able to detect. But you have a huge group of people, that's 40% of people, that are not able to detect. And then if you add all those things we talked about, you get the picture. So, my belief, my philosophy, the core of my advisory is that, yes, we embrace technology. Yes, we embrace AI. Yes, we learn AI. I've actually created my own clone in AI, and I've spent a lot of time and money learning about AI this year. Actually, I love it. But, we really need, with all the technical skills that we gain and that 360 view we build, we need to put the human firewall at the center of what we do. This is what protects companies. This is what secures value. This is what creates trust. لأنه بالنهاية مثل ما أنا سبقت وقلت إنه التكنولوجيا لحالها ما بتكفي، لأنه بعد في كتير شرك عندها مشاكل بالتكنولوجي، وهو الوعي المستمر هو الخط الدفاع الأول والأساسي، هو خاصة بكل هالتغييرات. والحماية الحقيقية هو لما نكون عم نشتغل سوا كفريق منظم، مش كمشقفين. والقيادة، الليدرشيب والحوكمة هي مش بس بإدارة المخاطر، بس هي كمان بحماية الثقة، وللثقة بدنا أشخاص. And most organizations I work with and I advise and support, they can see immediately where they are strong and where they are exposed. Now, what does that mean in practice? It means that really leadership behavior and how we work is not just about getting a certification and writing a policy. It's the human nature of us. It's having the critical thinking, having the emotional intelligence, it's having the leadership capability, it's having the right culture, it's having the empowerment, it's creating the strong teams. It's all these things that really matter and determines what the outcome will be when the issues surface. And it also determines how quickly we respond to reduce the impact and the negative consequences. So technology needs a human operating system. Let me repeat that. Technology needs a human operating system. Even the World Economic Forum said that, you know, by 2027, which is only what, a year away, by 2027, 44% of jobs will either disappear or change or look different. And also they said that like all the skills that we need will be shifted because in a different sense. And that the most important skills will be, of course, are knowledge of AI, but they are all the human skills like critical thinking and emotional intelligence and empathy and understanding. And so building these leadership capabilities is essential today to shape the future. This is essential to shape the future. Now, I know we cannot interact. I love interacting and I miss interacting with all of you because normally I love when we get the likes, but this GoToWebinar is slightly different. I want you to take a moment to reflect in your organizations, knowing what you know about your organization. If the wrong phishing email was to come, if like the case of Marks and Spencer, where through a third party, someone was able, you know, the fraudster was able to hack through and get authorized access through the IT provider who did not know that they are being fooled. You know, would people pause and check these things? What if they get a video, an impersonated video from one of your leaders? Would they pause and verify the senior request? Or will they take it to heart? يعني عندهم الجرأة إنه يسألوا الأسئلة، عندهم المعرفة ليسألوا الأسئلة، عندهم الشجاعة والقناعة. A question like to think about that. If someone who is a senior leader comes and says it has to be done now, will they challenge him or her? Would the team feel safe to challenge that sort of, it has to happen now, we have to pay now? You know, are the governance structures and roles and you know, escalation procedures clear when something feels unusual? إذا في شيء كان مش من المعتاد، هل يا ترى في الوعي والإدراك والمعرفة لا يقولوا لا؟ Or, for example, if something that appears to come from a board member or CEO or CFO or your manager, that you have the trust and that you do it. So these are questions that are not technical questions, right? They are not technical questions. They are leadership questions. هيدي منا أسئلة وطروحات تقنية. هيدي أسئلة عن الطبيعة البشرية وعن أسئلة قيادية. وأنتم فيكم تجاوبوا عليهم بضمن معرفتكم لشركتكم أنتم. So yeah, I'd like you to take a little moment to reflect. I'll pause as you reflect for a minute. So as we go in, you know, awareness, as I said, is really the first step. It is this trigger that we, the start point. But this is a journey. It is not a one-off. It's not like a one training. And what we require is really to build the capabilities. And that we build the leadership potential, and we practice it, and we embed it, and we implement it, and it's over time. It's not a 1 hour training. It's a deeper journey that you would take your organization through, that your organizations would go through. And let's kind of reflect again a little bit around these. What would people in your organization do? How safe are they to challenge things? How safe do they feel to speak out? How empowered do they feel? How much critical thinking skills do they have? How much technical, perhaps, or AI awareness they have? What are the, what's the speed of decision making and action in your organization? And so you can get the idea that this is a journey. الوعي هو البداية، بس إنه لنقدر نعمر القدرة القوية بالشركة هي رحلة قيادية بتاخد وقت. يعني هي رحلة وعي وإدراك ويعني we're scaffolding the skill set and the capabilities. We're building them layer by layer. We're scaffolding. And so as I've been working with different clients and I see a lot of need in this space, I've actually developed a program. I'm developing and finalizing a program, a leadership program that I will be introducing in 2026. So if this resonates with any one of you and you are interested to know more, please feel free to direct message me afterwards and I can explain more about it. But it's a very much a program to strengthen that human and build that human firewall by strengthening the leadership capabilities in the business. So this is not an ACFE type training, on fraud, or this is not in how to audit training. This is a leadership program around building the capabilities in the organization, from the board to the senior leadership to the leadership of the assurance functions. And it's going to be really exciting. I'm very excited about that. So I'm going to wrap up and go into questions because I want to give you enough time to go into questions without rushing it. But this is a little bit about me. Thank you so much, Ahmad, Iram, Haytham, Amal, Abbas, for introducing me earlier. And so I am based in London, but I operate globally, and I provide advisory and consultancy, mentoring, coaching, education, and training. And I'm very much focused about elevating governance, elevating internal audit, risk management, building the leadership capabilities, and transforming audit, risk, fraud into strategic business partners, and also enabling the organizations to have the resilience and the strength. Now, the human defense is, I want to leave you with those messages that the human defense is an investment. We need to think about it. We need to plan it. We need to plan it, because all the examples I gave, there are repetitive examples that you see that the same happens, whether we're in Singapore, in the US, in Europe, in the Middle East, and etc. It happens because we are all humans. So building that human defense, that human firewall, is essential to that, so that we have no regrets later. شو بقولوا باللبناني أنا بقولوا نتفة وقاية أحلى من أمطار علاج. Maybe you have something similar بعمان. So الوقاية أهم من العلاج. And so Haytham, when he introduced me, he mentioned that I interviewed John Jill. I did. It was a fantastic conversation, and he is an amazing man. I'm sure some of you know him already. And so by all means, please, I'd encourage you to go listen. I encourage you to go listen to this podcast episode. And this is how you find my podcast. So if you scan the QR code, it will take you to Impact Legacy with Rania. And of course, I encourage you to subscribe, to follow, to tune in, to listen to my future episodes, to share this also with all your colleagues and encourage them to subscribe. I've interviewed already different leaders, and I have some amazing leaders coming up in 2026. And all my episodes are translated in Arabic. يعني كل الحلقات في عليهم ترجمة عربية لأنه أنا الهدف إنه كمان كوني أنا عربية إنه وصل الرسالة وأول القدرات بالعالم العربي بوطن العربي بوطني. So I hope you will enjoy it, and you can find it also not only on YouTube, and you can find it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, etc. All right, so that will take you there and you'll be able to find it. And finally, if you'd like to keep in touch, if you'd like, please connect, engage the QR code. This is a different QR code. This one will take you to my LinkedIn, but also this is my business number and my email. Please get in touch. Let me know how things are. Would love to hear from you. Follow, connect on LinkedIn. And yes, and so let's get back. I'll leave this here so you can find my details, and let's open to questions.
Thank you very much, Rania, for that insightful session. So I'll just read the questions that have come in, and then you can answer them one by one. So the first question, what early warning indicators should organizations track to detect AI-enabled fraud before losses occur?
Well, if you think about some of these instances that have happened, you know, not a lot of them had many, you know, it was like a big bang, if you know what I mean. So it's not like they send them a signal and then they waited and signal, they waited. That's from, but what I would say the early warnings are, how well do your people, like these reflection questions I've asked, how well do the people in your organization truly understand what's going on in the world of AI? How well do they know how to respond? How well do they know when to say no? You know, also, you know, as a technical, from a technical point of view, of course, you know, like the security operating centers, etc., they are able to track if there's been hacking attacks and things like that. But as I said, most of those examples, actually all of them, did not come because the security failed. It was because the people failed, because the people gave them authorization. They clicked on an email they shouldn't have clicked on. They, you know, interacted with someone not knowing who they are. They were fooled and they gave the, you know, information about the company, or they actually physically authorized the payment. So awareness and this human firewall, test yourself against that to know where do you stand, and that would be an early warning system.
Thank you for
but
that.
If I may add, like, you know, there are also cultural things that are early warning systems. So, you know, and when I interviewed John Jill, we went also into a lot of those, and it was very interesting that he quoted different cases when, you know, and the message is that, does your company have different rules for the executives than for everyone? You know, are executive privileged with certain things, and that, you know, they are, you know, above checks, so they could be also the ones clicking on things or not following policy, or etc.
Thank you for that. The next question is, how does generative AI allow a single fraudster to manage thousands of personalized scams simultaneously? And how does this change the traditional cost of business for criminals?
The cost of business for criminals has reduced massively because AI basically has many tools where, you know, for example, if you sit and ask AI something, AI doesn't get tired, does it? You know, it can keep repeating, you know, you can ask it to give you 3,000 things and it would not get tired. So it is enabling, so instead of before they might have to sit and write a phishing email and write it in English and maybe make a little grammar error here or a little typo there that when you read it in the past you think it's legitimate. Now you know, Gen AI and agentic AI is allowing for perfect language, perfect translation, 24/7 access to be able to repeat something. It's creating codes. You can repurpose things. You can distribute it. You know, you can use like email distributions with the one you know, script that is being modified and send it to millions of people. You can find information. You can all that has made it a lot cheaper and a lot faster to do. And there's many tools out there for fraudsters, which meant that what used to take time now takes a fraction of a second. And also what that means, the danger of that is that when these things happen and companies need time to think and learn from the mistake or to plug that hole in their system or, you know, to do this, but in that time, the fraudsters are getting better and are hitting it again. They are even monitoring payment systems in some cases in companies.
So in the same line as you were just saying, so just to continue that, there was another question saying that since this is the case and sophisticated AI scams are so widely spread and they disproportionately now target the elderly or the tech illiterate, so who exactly is responsible for their protection?
Well, the elderly and tech illiterate are not the only victims. So I would advise you again to think really about that, because a lot of the people who have been fooled were not illiterate. They work in companies, they are corporate leaders, they are corporate things, but they are human. So they're not necessarily illiterate. But the FBI, the police here, Scotland Yard, I'm sure you have the, you know, Ministry of Internal Affairs, you know, all those are in, you know, looking at ways to help individuals on the ground at the ground level. So for example, you know, media outlets, there are every now and again on Sky News, on AI, on Arabiya, on Jazeera, there are programs that talk about AI and things like that to educate people at large for the day-to-day type things. And the police are taking steps, but as I said, the steps of the police are much slower than the steps of the fraudsters. But when it comes to organizations, to corporations, to semi-government entities, to government entities, to organizations themselves, then really the responsibility is on the leaders to build that defense, be it human and technical. So it's the board, it's the leadership team, and it's you guys. Assurance, anti-fraud, risk, audit, compliance, InfoSec, CISOs.
Great, thank you for that. So talking about the leaders, the next question is the leaders, should they spending their budget now on pivoting towards preventive AI tech or towards customer education and support?
Well, as I just explained in here, obviously you do need to invest in the AI, but there is no point in having a world-class system if your most weak link fails, and the most weak link remains the humans. So of course, organizations are looking to invest in AI tools and embracing AI and all that. With that, they also need to improve how they use data. But at the heart of it, there is a mindset shift. There are behaviors. There are leadership capabilities, there are team and capabilities, and employee capabilities, and these are the ones that, you know, I believe are not being paid enough attention to, and this is the one I'm advocating on and emphasizing that we need to pay attention to those, because a lot, you know, all the examples point to the weak link, the human.
All right, thank you so much. There are a few more questions, but due to the time constraint, I'm going to ask our both ACFE and IIA Oman Director Amal to give the vote of thanks. Thank you very much, Rania.
Thank you, Dr. Iram. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to send them to me on LinkedIn or whatever. You've got all my details, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Iram.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rania, and for this beautiful and insightful presentation. We all learned a lot from you, and for all the questions that were put forward. I also wanted to. Now I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say thank you so much again, Rania, for this. And thank you to all of the ACFE board members and members who joined, all of the IIA members and the board members that were here, Abbas and Haytham, the presidents of both boards, and Iram and Hassan and Ahmed al-Subhi. And I might forget a few, so please forgive me. And to CBFS for hosting, for being a part of both of these chapters. And thank you everyone for attending on this occasion, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and a Happy New Year from us.
Thank you, Amal. It's been a pleasure. I really wanted to see you all because I love to be able to see you all. I didn't get to see you on screen, but I hope, wish you all a you know, happy end of year holiday season, and I wish you a wonderful, healthy, blessed, prosperous, successful 2026. I look forward to seeing you in Oman, inshallah.